and welcome to Networking Unleashed, Building Profitable Connections. Welcome to the show, folks. I'm your host, Michael Forman, and you're listening to the podcast where networking is more than just an awkward handshake and bad coffee. It's an art and a talent. But here's the twist. It's an art and talent you can actually learn. Yes, even if you're the person hiding in the corner at every event pretending to check emails. Networking isn't just a nice skill to have, it's a game changer. When you get good at it, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. More connections, more opportunities, more profits. It's like unlocking a cheat code for life. So whether you're the life of the party or the let me just stay at home and text type, we've got something for you. Stick around. Let's turn those awkward and small talk moments into big talks, big wins. So here, I want to introduce you to Jackson. He's become a friend of mine and we've exchanged podcasts and everything. That's all on the outset of things. But when it comes to networking, I put Jackson at the top of the list because he believes in true networking. Jackson teaches visionary entrepreneurs how to unlock sustainable revenue growth and expand their legacy by becoming a power brand in their market. Jackson teaches businesses, and I would go into it a great because I can sit here for 3 hours and tell you all about Jackson, but I might as well have Jackson talk about Jackson. So here, Jackson, how are you? And welcome to my show.
I'm doing great, Michael, and it's an honor to be here. I really, really appreciate the genuine nature with which you show up. And my friends, my new friends via podcasting, those who are listening in, I have no reason to pull awkward or random or disingenuine compliments for anybody that I meet in life. You can always compliment somebody's hair. You can always compliment somebody's logo on their shirt or the quality of their podcast studio. But when it comes to genuine nature, like Michael, you represent the best of the best of them. And it was such an honor to have you on our show. We got 2,000 episodes in less than 2 years. And you're somebody that I keep going back to thinking about and being grateful for many people who are often hard to remember.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that as
Yeah.
well. Let's just pull you and give me an example of how strategic networking significantly impacted your business.
It's huge. I've been a networker since I was a kid, like since I was super, super little. And part of that is coming from a divided family, right? Living in mom's home, living in dad's home, meeting step siblings, being left at cousins' houses. My mom's a single mom of six, right? So she had a lot of people in church that would help too. So I lived in a lot of homes, which meant I was constantly telling my story to people, talking to new people. She was very active in her church community as well. So I grew up, and when you grow up in a divided home and you got a name Jackson, no kids had the name Jackson growing up, right? I would go look for the little license plate you could put on your bike. They did not make one for Jackson in my day. I was so frustrated about that. Now it's the top name for kids, so different story. But people say, oh, wow, that's interesting. Where does your name come from? Right. And then, well, my five sisters named me. You got five sisters? Yeah, I have five. In fact, I have 15 half and step brothers. You have 15 half and the whole day of class, like of introductions every year for school was, who's this Jackson kid? Like, does his story ever end? But like in a positive way. People were just constantly curious. So that gave me an upper hand in terms of valuing connecting with others and getting to know people's stories and then asking people questions to get the light off of me. Right? I had to learn how to get the light off. And they're like, your eyes, are you blind? Like I get that from the guys, and the girls are like, your eyes are so pretty. The guys are like, your eyes are scary. Marilyn Manson would want your eyes. Like there's all sorts of weird things about how I grew up. And so you could say I grew up with a very silver spoon in my mouth from a networking standpoint, and coming from a mom with, a single mom of six kids, we knew what hard economic times looked like as well. So we were diligent. We learned how to hustle. We learned how to talk to people. When I say hustle, not the kind where you're snake oiling people, but the kind where you're getting after it and you're perhaps trying a bit too hard in business. So the sweet spot that I'll settle in on with this, Michael, and pass the mic back to you is there's the get after it and hustle way that's kind of like professional begging that most people do. And there's the being a leader and sitting back and being a lighthouse, I call it, shining the light, not at people, but on others and the paths that people may want to go down and just existing. And if people want to come up to you as a lighthouse, that's totally fine. But I'd rather be a lighthouse that serves and helps others than make the whole thing about me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just from what you were telling me, first of all, if you have to be consistent with anything you do, you have to be authentic with anything and everything that you do. Once you get those two things down, then you're well on your way. Networking is a skill, so you have to practice.
Yes.
And one great thing about networking is when you're going to a networking event, you don't say very much. Everybody thinks that you talk and you're trying to sell something. The opposite is true because when you go somewhere, you're listening to people. You're a problem solver
Yeah.
and you have the answer to their problems. So if you can hear what they're saying, actually listen and then you pause after you listen because that shows that you're listening to them. And then you respond with what you have to say about what they said, not the next thing that you wanted to say. So it's very true in everything. So let me ask you a question. So, what are the key elements to effective networking?
Intentionality. I'll go with that one first. You said we have to be authentic.
Okay.
I intentionally choose to see it as we get to be authentic, right? The opportunity to. And so it changes the perspective and dynamic when we begin to realize that it's such a blessing and gift to be able to be authentic in a world that often is trying to showboat to promote themselves. The other opportunity that exists there for me is I don't really see myself as a problem solver anymore. I used to. I'm not there showing up to solve problems. I show up to do what is best for the people that I serve. I do help. I'm willing to help, right? But I don't know if you have problems I can solve. I'm not God. I might not be able to. And two, it's not even about being able to. I'm a solutions oriented individual. So I don't really see. We talked about blessings when God, and I said I'm blessed, man. And I recorrected myself. I said, you know what? I'm blessed when it's good. I'm blessed when the life's bad. I'm blessed when it's ugly. But I'm grateful that the good blessings are in store right now, right? Because at all times, there are solutions for all situations. And I may not be that vessel to provide solutions to people, but as you said, I can listen to people, right? I can get to know their stories. I can see what they're up to, and if what they're up to and what they need or what they want or what they're trying to accomplish aligns with the resources or the assets or my abilities, and I'm being very sincere about this. If they truly want to work with me, like if they are chasing or pursuing in a healthy fashion an engagement and a connection with me, then I will reciprocate on that. But if they are not coming towards me, I will not go towards them. A lighthouse doesn't move. A lighthouse stays right where it's at. And by doing that, again, by shining the light and by helping people connect with each other, a great book on this is Tribal Leadership. It's one of the hardest books to read, which is why nobody reads it. And it's one of those books that's recommended by extremely great leaders in the world. Not all leaders in the world. It's not Rich Dad Poor Dad level. This is some really legitimate, like amazingly deep stuff. And chapter 10 talks about triad relationships. And triad relationships is when I take Michael Forman and I say, hey, Michael, your virtues and values of networking align very well with Clay Hicks and how he goes about networking as well. I would love to see the two of you guys connect, because I think you share the same virtues and principles. There's 8 billion people to help in the world, and the two of you combining forces could lead to a 1 + 1 = 11. I'll let you guys didn't know I was following some framework. In the book, they highlight that when you do that, the irony of it is usually the two people that connect, they end up talking about you. They end up connecting based on the value
Sure.
you provide. And then they
You're the
can build something together.
commonality.
Go ahead.
You're the commonality of the two of them. So that's a good basis for them to begin speaking.
Yep.
So
And I
you
follow
really
up with
become
both
a
people
broker.
outside of it. And I say, Michael, how'd it go with Clay? I follow up with Clay. Clay, how'd it go with Michael? Right. And it gives them an opportunity to what I would call testify, right? Report back to me like, man, that was so great. And by the way, thank you for that. And, or like, man, that guy was such a prick. Whatever happens, I can learn, refine, and reevaluate who might the next connection be. But if we're constantly connecting people, it solves the lead generation challenge 100%. I have no lead generation problems. We have to turn off our pipelines all the time, and people have to marinate and wait to talk to us. Our show is booked for months in advance. I just turned off Fridays as well. I'm no longer doing my Friday 2 p.m. shows because there's so many people to support already in our network that I just try to be present with those who are here. And again, I don't need to chase anybody. There's no reason to go about chasing people when you create relationships that want to exist around. If you're chasing people, it's because people don't want to be around you. What are you going to do to fix that?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And just to circle back and what that would mean for networking is I was in the mortgage industry and I would go to events. I'd come home with a shoebox filled with business cards and think how well I did. And then you realize that I didn't do well at all.
Yeah.
I was horrible
Mm.
at it. But now when I'm teaching or doing a workshop or something else like that, I'm saying you shouldn't walk away with more than 15 or 20 business cards because that meant that you had a relationship with that person. You really don't have time, as you said, to talk to everybody.
Mhm.
You're picking the people that you want and that you truly desire to create that relationship with, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And that takes time. So a 3 or 4 hour event, you should only be walking away with 15 or 20 business cards, and that's really it. Because if you walked away with more than that, then you really didn't give the time to
I don't
those
agree with that.
people.
I don't agree with that at all, but it's okay. It's a different
Okay,
perspective.
well,
So
tell me. Well,
my goal used to
tell me
be
your perspective.
60 per day, right? And I watched investors do this. That's how I learned to do this. They would go very fast, very fast, very fast, very fast, but they knew how to pre-qualify and filter who it was they were looking for. And so my left butt cheek pocket, that's the I don't need to talk to you again pocket. The right butt cheek pocket, that's the great pocket, right? That's the one that I'm going to follow up with that person for something very genuine and specific on. And at the same time, I've got a massive team. And a massive team, I say massive, we're about 15 strong. And some of those team members, right, we're going to Podfest in a week from now. And the cool thing is this Podfest process, right? There's 3 co-hosts on my show. They're all going with me now. So we've got a little bit of an entourage going on. And there's these really cool apps for events these days, like the Hoova app where Podfest community is. There's 1,500 people in there. My assistants are in every single one of our Hoova apps, filtering and looking at who are the best connections to get involved with. What pre-events can we set up virtually to interact with people? And we're creating a massive catalog of individuals that could connect with every single one of our clients as well. Who's in the baby boomer interest? Who's in the health interest? Who's in the family interest? And my goal is, again, if I can get in front of 1,500 people in a classy way as a lighthouse, the right ones are going to end up gravitating towards me. But it is a very good idea to know, again, how to filter. I've got a guide I'm happy to give your audience, actually. It's called the 12-step checklist to recognizing market leaders and how to sort them. It's a 25-page book, basically, on all things emotional intelligence, which words turn on legacy builders and which words turn them off. Easy, simple, automated, autopilot. Like, no, alcohol, legacy builders don't have time for stuff like that. On the flip side, hobbyists, and I do connect with both, they have almost the exact opposite desires in terms of what they want to hear. Passive, um, you know, I need to see the list, but I don't do the hobbyist thing. Like, I do my best to focus on my legacy builders. Casual, another word that they like. They don't want to hear things like metrics, global scale, diligence, tenacity, hustle, rich. And I totally get that, but I need to know how to speak to people. Some people call it two-face, but if I'm going to speak to a Latino, I better speak Spanish. If I'm going to speak to somebody in Chinese, I better learn how to speak Chinese. If I don't know your love languages, I can't relate with you. If I don't know your tribal languages, I can't relate with you too well. The opportunity and networking to get to know different perspectives, talk to people from different walks of lives, and be able to be able to fulfill my purpose, at least in life, which is to help people. But it's a constant, ever-growing opportunity, not so much as a challenge, but an opportunity that enriches my ability to enjoy this life.
Seeing your point of view, I can see that you've come to this after 20 years of experience, and you've got to this point. Now, I'm talking about really the beginning of that climb. So I agree with you that that would be a good way of doing it. So
Where I
maybe if
started
you
too,
either
though. Where I
start,
started, I was still aggressive with it, even in the beginning. I didn't say that I'm not
yeah,
Richard Branson, so let me not behave like Richard Branson. I said, I'm going to behave at that level now. And trust me, it was painful. I didn't get to everybody and I had to learn the lessons. But what I'm trying to help you see, Michael, and the audience too, is actually when I limited myself, it led to less results. And when I chose to be aggressive with following up too, the worst thing that can happen to all of you listening is that you get really great at the 15 or the 60, but you get great at influencing people and you accidentally convince people to work with you, even though they're not fully convicted on wanting to work with you. And I'm telling you, that was part of my journey that was painful, was convincing people to work with me and showboating a little bit too much or getting them excited about things, not realizing that they were eventually going to turn around and play victim and blame me for things because they didn't make their choice of their own accord. And so I just kind of want to bridge those gaps because I have a feeling nobody else will probably ever talk about it on the podcast.
well, maybe not, maybe not. Well, you've been so successful. What mistakes have you made,
So,
and how did you overcome?
so many. One, and maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it's just is what it is. I used to be a lot like Grant Cardone. And in that realm, this is a man who tells people what to do, where to look. You have to do this. You should do this. I learned through some painful relationship losses that that's a controlling demeanor, that I'm literally making people subordinate to me based on a superior posture. And I eventually learned I don't feel that way. We're all equals in this world. There's a time and a place for a doctor to tell me what prescription to take, right? But in general, we are all in the same playing field. We're all perfectly freaking awesome individuals, every single one of us. And so the shift of being able to not feel like I used to also feel like I had to be better than others to be appreciated in the world. And so the big shift of, you know what? I don't need to be better than the others because I'm not better than anybody else. But two, that doesn't mean that I can't be my best self. And ironically, trying to be better than others, when I was in a room where I was better at something than others, I was good enough. Like that was enough for me. But that was completely ignoring my ability to be my best self and the opportunity to actually just say, you know what? It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. I want to enjoy my best life possible. And in order to do that, I've got to be willing to do, and I've got to accept the opportunity to say, I'm going to do this to the maximum of my capabilities because I deserve it. I want it. I love myself enough to be able to pursue and do that. And as I've lived by that principle of just striving to be the best that I can, even at forgiveness with myself when I make mistakes, because I make plenty of mistakes as I go, right? If I can forgive myself instantly and say, no, I'm going to shift. I don't care if other people think that that's not how forgiveness works, or if they think I need some type of pin, what do they call that? The process of 6 months or whatever. No, that's not how it works. I can forgive myself instantly. Why? So that I can get right back into being my best immediately and moving forward and serving. So as you mentioned, I love that you said it, Michael. The networking process, it's an art, and it's something that we will always have the opportunity to continue to learn from. And it's just amazing how you can meet one new person today and they can completely blow your mind and like change your perspective. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm still, yeah. You get in your 30s and you're like, wow, I don't really know anything about life. Cool. I'm going to keep that in mind, because in my 40s, I'm probably going to feel the same way, doubled down. So
Right, right. And believe me, when you get into your 60s, you really understand it. Okay, so you're the lighthouse. You become this central focal point, and you are introduced, or you introduce yourself to so many people. I always say that the follow-up is so important. It's probably more important than actually meeting the people. So give me your favorite way of following up.
I don't anymore. I used to. I agree with you that now here's the key though. Those you listen in, honor the relationships, honor them, right? That's a big thing. Honor the relationships that honor you, right? So if I'm reaching out to somebody, and remember too, there's technology. I have automation systems that do this stuff for me. Why? Because if I'm manually chasing everybody, then I'm not going to be able to build the dynasty that I'm building. I'm not going to be able to scale. It's not possible. I need teams. It's so sad how many people think the solopreneur path leads to victory. Guys, I failed miserably at solopreneurship. Oh, I tried. And that's why I'm so outspoken about it. I've never met a solopreneur who's successful. I've met solopreneurs who step on other people's heads and hearts and say they're alone. And they say, oh, I just have a VA. What the? Like, that's called virtual abuse. Like, they're going to acknowledge that person who helps you. And then I've met people who lie about their success. They get 500,000 followers on Instagram or whatever. And they come on as clients for me. And I find out they're making less than a janitor's salary. And they're lying to people to get attention. And they didn't actually go to that event over time. They did all their photos at once at a conference where they teach them to do photos like that for the entire year. What the heck? It's so frustrating sometimes. But to get out of that and back onto the virtuous side of it, and when it comes to follow up, I guess I'm a bigger fan of follow through. If I promise I'm going to do something for somebody, then I'm going to do it. And if I don't, then I have an opportunity to apologize, or I have an opportunity to own that and not apologize and say, we have so much other success that's going on that we didn't re-engage, and that's okay. And if people are looking at me to be their savior, they're looking in the wrong place. They already have a savior. It's not me, right? I'm just here to do my best in all of this. But my systems take care of all of the necessary harmonious follow-up to prevent technical mishaps. And what do I mean by that? Just because I texted you, Michael, hey, it was great to meet you, I'd love to connect with you again, that text message might not go through, right? There's literally a chance that it doesn't send. And so if I care about the relationship enough, which is where my heart should be, it shouldn't be on the mechanics, it should be on that. And I decide to call you one day, I'm not going to call you and say, hey, I texted you. Why didn't you text me back? I'm just following up to see if you like that proposal or not. If they liked the proposal, what would they have done? They would have bought. They probably would have never asked for the proposal. So we have these really strange shortcomings as businesses where we are inviting, offering, and supporting people, even though stranger danger prevents people from ever wanting that from you, right? If we don't first intrigue, attract, and inspire, and I mean, really, you can't check a box. Oh, Michael's inspired now. It doesn't work that way, right? You have to be able to recognize, is this person truly, and you have the opportunity to recognize, if they're truly attracted, if they're truly inspired, then when they send a tweet to Taylor Swift and 10 years later, she happens to respond, you know how excited that fan's going to be? They're not going to be like, well, why did you come 10 years later, Taylor Swift? No. But if you show up 10 years later and they act like that to you, the person who's listening, they act like that to me, well, it's because they don't love me as much as that fan loves Taylor Swift. I haven't earned that because I have not attracted and inspired to that magnitude. And we can all learn how to intrigue, how to attract, and how to inspire, but we never talk about this in the business realm.
It's true. That's very, very true. And you hit on something. It's I say follow up, but what you're talking about is following through.
Mm.
So if you make a promise that you're going to do something, say something, whatever it is, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to do it to the best of your ability, and that is one of the key points of a true business person, because you can be in business, you can make promises and say things, never follow up with them. And then how does that make you look?
Yeah.
So just by the mere fact of you following through these items, you make good on your promises, or you're making a connection, or buying them a loaf of bread, it doesn't make a difference. You're following through. And that is, I think, very,
Saying
very
no.
important.
I'll reveal this
Um,
too. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and other leaders like that. So one of the best skill sets you can learn as somebody who is leading at scale is you've got to learn to use the word no, and to be able to say no. I had a client the other day, right? Not some prospect. This is somebody who pays me. Say, Jackson, I really want to send you this book. I'm so excited. And he pitched the heck out of me about this book. And, it was a good pitch. He really saw how it's going to be dynamic and valuable for me. And yet I already know where I'm at with certain levels. And so I said, I really, really appreciate that you want to send me that book. And I've got a very long list of amazing books. And let's do this instead. I have a proposed alternative for you. Get to know my team members that are helping and supporting you. Let's send that book to one of them so that they can learn for themselves, since they probably you'll find who needs this, who really needs this basic concept. And they can report back to us and we can train them based on the concepts of that book. They will read the book for me and they will teach me what is necessary out of that book based on how they know me, because they know me far better than you know me as well. And so I didn't say, but I'm not going to accept opportunities. And I think that's the thing that kills most businesses is you don't have a preferred vendors program. We just built on LaunchStars, by the way, and it is the coolest thing, because now all the collaborators, you want to do a webinar, you want to do a LinkedIn, you want me on a podcast, you want me on all this. It's not a bad thing, but there's a filtration process where these preferred vendors need to go through in order to pre-qualify, to show they actually care about us and they're not just trying to bait and switch us into some program without ever taking consideration for who we really are. And I know that takes a long time to build, but Michael, that's why I spent the last 14 years designing systems at scale that I can then give to my clients for them to be able to benefit from and use. Because if we have the restriction, the limiting belief that, well, I'm just a beginner, I can't. Well, Henry Ford said it, I think it was him. He said, or Abraham Lincoln, if you think you can or you think you can't, you are 100% right. Doesn't matter if you're new or not. You can practice the principles of scale.
Jackson, that was great. That's great. Listen, I want to thank you for everything that you had to offer. And I'm sure that we're just nipping the tip of the iceberg of all of your knowledge. So let me ask you a question. If somebody wanted to get hold of you, if anybody wanted to get your services, get you to consult with them, or just to know about you, where would they go?
Well, the nice thing is my SEO is so good that Jackson Calame pops it. No, I'm the only Jackson Calame in the world. So you can find me real fast on Google. I have the advantage, John Smith. I feel bad for you. On the flip side, my hope is that you take a sincere interest in who we are, who I am, and what we're doing. If you're a Latino, oportunidadeslatinas.com. If you are a visionary, or you're a leader who wants to share your vision, visionproslive.com. Come hang out with my team on our shows. I have co-hosts for those shows. I would love to get to know who you are. Take the time again. We don't work with everybody. We got to find people who are loving, patient, persistent, consistent, and reliable. Consistency and reliability, they take steps, milestones. You've got to be able to see that over time or over a concerted amount of different efforts and a track path of success. If you don't have that, I'm happy to be your friend. I'm happy to get to know you, right? I'm not going to turn anybody away. I'm here to help and serve. But if you're looking for like the business support and help, then you got to go through our combine. We need to be able to see what type of leader you are and see if we're truly bought in, because I don't build visions I'm not bought into. I don't work with leaders who aren't great leaders, the ones who breathe down your neck and want the scope of works and blah, 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 and just put in a box and don't call to get rich quick, but let's sure make it look like, let's call it a receive wealth fast. It's like, come on, guys. Why are we not recognizing we got an opportunity to be more abundant? So if you're drawn to that, come and say hi.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Jackson, this has been an absolute pleasure, and I thank you again for coming on the podcast.
Love your podcast, Michael. Keep it up, dude. The world needs this.
That's a wrap, folks. A huge thank you to our special guest for sharing such incredible insights today. And of course, a big shout out to you, our amazing listeners, for tuning in and spending your time with us. Remember, networking isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. So take what you've learned today, get out there, and make some meaningful connections. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little networking inspiration. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or my website, michaelaforman.com. Remember, until next time, keep practicing, keep connecting, and keep building those relationships. This is Michael A. Forman signing off. Take care and happy networking.